I'm Petruzzelli. I'm the co-founder of Bidstack. Before I jump into my presentation, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek to the kind of things that we get up to, both on the gaming side and on the brand side, with a quick 1-minute trailer. Cool. So, pushing the boundaries of advertising. What does that mean? We effectively see ourselves as the bridge between the physical and the real world, and I'll touch on that a little bit later on. We're trying to create those kind of unique, desirable experiences that the brands are looking for, whilst not detracting from the gameplay. And that, for us, is a fundamentally incredibly important thing. When we set up this company, the two founders, myself and James, are keen gamers, and we realize that the most important thing is to give the brand that return on value whilst maintaining that authentic experience. And we see ourselves as being at the point, that kind of apex of multi-generational entertainment, which is what gaming is. So a little bit about Bidstack. The company was founded in 2015. It was founded in the digital out-of-home space. We wanted to bring programmatic to billboards, programmatic to Times Square, effectively. We realized that there was a lot of technological hurdles in the physical world which we couldn't really overcome, i.e. people running around with USB sticks switching the billboards out, and we pivoted. So we went into what I'd describe as virtual out-of-home gaming. In 2017, we signed our first deal with Sega for Football Manager, which was a really exciting moment, and from that moment on, we kind of started to trailblaze the industry. We did the first ever programmatic ad. I wrote the code for that myself. It was a super exciting moment. That was in 2018. And obviously since then, the industry's evolved a huge amount. We've seen a lot of competitors and peers, and it's been a very exciting movement forward. We have 80 staff in 5 international locations. We're listed on the London Stock Exchange. Exclusive relationships with some of the biggest publishers and some of the biggest agencies, and access to incredible inventory globally. And I think the most important thing, because I'm a technologist at heart, is we've built all our technology ourselves. Everything from the SSP to the SDK to the ad server is proprietary. And in fact, at one point, the dev team was about 80% of our entire workforce. It's now more like 40%, but we've always been a technology-first company, and that's an incredibly important thing for me. So, I was going to do a lot of talk about data here, but ultimately it's been covered by everyone extensively, so I'm not going to bore you with the size of the market, because you all know the market's massive. I guess the only thing I'd like to highlight here is that I see gaming as still being a blind spot within media plans. I think that's an educational piece. I think ourselves, our peers, need to continue educating, and agencies need to continue educating internally. I think we haven't scratched the surface of what's possible for brands, and I think there's real exciting momentum at the moment, and I think we should continue that. So where do we sit within the ecosystem? Well, simply put, we're the kind of the bridge. We take brands, and through your DSP, you can purchase into some of the biggest titles globally, whether that's EA, Sega, and our technology enables you to do that. We have an SSP, we have an ad server, and we have an SDK, and that bridge is that transition from the DSP directly into the game itself. So what I'm going to show you here is a rough version of how it works. I'd like to say a little bit more technical than this video shows, but effectively, you take a standard 728 by 90, a standard display format, and our technology will take that format and manipulate it to fit into the environment and render into the environment so it looks and feels like an intrinsic part of the gameplay, and that's, again, super important. So as I play here, you'll see this JBL ad will transition from our dashboard into the game. That time lapse is milliseconds. It's instantaneous. The rendering is immediate, and as you can see, it looks and feels like it belongs in the gameplay. It isn't a display ad that hasn't been rendered correctly. It's more involved. And here's another great example of a campaign we ran, the Marriott Bonvoy skin on the car. And again, another thing that's important to note is it doesn't have to be a billboard. It can be a skin, it can be an outfit, it can be anything. We ultimately control any kind of asset that sits within a dynamic in-game environment. So pretty much any surface can be mapped and can be controlled by our technology. So what I'm going to touch on here is a little bit about the IAB definitions that were done in the Guide to Gaming in 2021. So there's in the game, which has been covered before, and I'm going to cover in detail now, around the game and away from the game. And I'm going to give you a little bit of perspective around what Bidstack does in each of those areas. So, in the game, you saw it in our trailer, it's seamless, it's programmatic or direct, it's impossible to ignore because it's a part of the gameplay and it fits and looks like it's in the environment. And it can be character skins, and it can be billboards around a racetrack, it can be in a stadium, it can be in a first-person shooter. The possibilities are really endless, and that is the core of what the business was founded around. Around the game, these formats you guys are probably more familiar with. We're talking about more of the performance-based metrics. We're talking about in-menu, rewarded video, playable ads, which was touched on earlier. There's still a lot of them are opt-in for the gamer, and they still add a lot of value. And I think on media plans, if you're combining that performance with that brand awareness, there's incredible value to it. I'm a big fan of combining the formats together. And then the final piece is away from the game. Now, we've done some activations in this. The one on the video right now is an exciting one we did. We sponsored 1J Esports, who are the ePremier champions, which was a really exciting thing for us. And we've done Tim Howard here, as you can see, an activation. It's effectively activations that occur outside of the gameplay entirely. So it's things like kit deals, in-stream, custom experiences. From my perspective, the most exciting part of being away from the game is very much the viewing audience. So that secondary viewing audience. It's that 650 odd million hours a week that's watched on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook gaming. The numbers are insane, and they're growing year on year, month on month. And that, for me, is a really exciting opportunity for all of us. So getting a little bit into the kind of measurement challenge. Again, this has been touched on a lot, so I'm going to keep it relatively fluid and relatively brief, but there is a measurement challenge initially. When we first carved out this industry, we looked at, like, do we use display? Do we use an app? Like, how does it work? But ultimately, it's very unique in the fact that it has occlusion, a 3D moving environment. There's a lot of tangibles that can't be controlled. And so we're working with the IAB and the MRC and our peers to create a standard which isn't too far away. And that will obviously be an exciting step forward for the industry. In the meantime, we use things like viewability, time in view, attention, brand uplift, and purchase intent to really highlight the value to the brands. And of course, we have things like fraud prevention with companies like Moat and Nielsen, the standard stuff that you would kind of expect. This next piece highlights kind of like the viewing tech we use. You might have heard Lumen mentioned earlier. So we had a 2-year exclusive deal when we first started out in game with Lumen, and we kind of carved out this path of what it looked like and what the value was for brands in the gaming space. So we did things like attention, where's the gamer looking in a typical session, brand recall, brand uplift, purchase intent, and we benchmarked that against the kind of norms like display and out of home. And it's worth highlighting that we used a lot of this data as well to help our publishers figure out how their map should look. So like, where is the best placement for the ads? Where is the most valuable placement for the brands? So this was kind of some of the benchmarking. This was from a Paco Rabanne Invictus campaign. Ultimately, the data here is that it holds a lot more attention. Now, I think the caveat that I want to give the whole audience is that this isn't an industry standard. We have a different way of how we value an impression to our competitors, so I can't comment on how it works for them, but ultimately, we're incredibly generous in how much value we give. So for example, a race may last 9 minutes, and we don't count each billboard as an impression. We would count the entire race as an impression. So you're potentially getting 20, 25 seconds of time per impression. Now that's different. Some of our peers perhaps count each billboard as an impression. It varies from provider to provider, but the decision we made early on was the most important thing is to bring the brands and agencies into this world. the inventory is there. There's enough games to sustain us all. It's important that the brand money comes. So this is a little bit about a Marriott Bonvoy campaign. Again, the Marriott in-game ads reviewed 1.4 times longer than traditional display ads. They achieved higher dwell times. People were longer engaged. And there was a much greater spontaneous recall, which is incredibly important. And ultimately, the facts of the campaign were that it really did deliver on what they were looking to do, and it's covered on later on when we have our panel. The final piece, which I'll brief on because I know we have a panel now, is the future. Now, the metaverse has been touched on a lot. What does it mean? We will have our opinions. My opinion, my humble opinion for what it's worth, is that the metaverse has kind of always been here. You know, Philip Rosedale created Second Life in 2003, 2002. Ultimately, that is the definition of the metaverse. That's what we're describing it as. Now, obviously, we can talk about decentralizing the blockchain, etc. But ultimately, if we're talking about the Web 2.0 metaverse, I believe it's been there for a long time. I think it's just evolving, and it's coming to the forefront of people's minds now. And the opportunity for brands to get involved is right now. And they can start to forge their own paths in real time right now. And that's it. So I'm going to call up Yasin, who's my colleague and VP Programmatic at Bidstack, and I'm calling up Keith, who's Head of Innovation at Publicis Media, for a little chat about the future.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Keith, for joining us on this panel. It's a pleasure to get your innovation mind to talk about where brands are now and where they're going. So kind of we've seen some examples today from Unilever and Verizon, and obviously our very own Marriott. So where do you think brands are and what are they exploring in terms of advertising in gaming?
Well, just looking out at the audience here today, you can tell there's a ton of interest in this space right now. And we're coming out of the pandemic. We're back here all together. And we've come out on the other side of this with gaming as the #1 entertainment outlet in the whole world. And so the opportunities for brands is to tap into this right now. And you think back when television was the #1 entertainment outlet, and this wasn't too long ago. As advertisers, we made TV spots. And as mobile started to come around, and mobile was the #1 entertainment outlet, right? We made mobile ads, and now that gaming has overtaken all of them and exceeded that, this just seems obvious. We should be in gaming, we should be in immersive experiences, and that's the place to reach this next generation audience.
So taking that into consideration, everything that we've learned today, how do you feel that gaming is now playing a part of an overall marketing strategy?
Yeah, you know, when you're looking at Gen Z, right, you've got 80% of Gen Z is gaming, right? They're spending 7 hours a week gaming. So now that's a ton of their free time. Now that's taking away, that's eroding everything else we've done in our marketing mix. So you have to start looking at gaming now as an advertiser and saying, if you're reaching the young audience, you're missing out on a whole lot of their free time right now. But it's not limited to Gen Z. Every generation all the way up to Gen X is gaming and is increasing. So I think that it's part of the overall marketing mix, and I'm bullish in a room full of people that want to understand about gaming, because this is the actuality. This is what's happening with people and how they're spending their free time right now.
And how are you kind of advising your brands at Publicis about tapping into these different gaming environments, and what kind of brands are you seeing kind of really at the forefront of getting into, obviously I have to mention this word, the metaverse?
Well, it's all over the place right now, right? We've got brands that have been in the space for years that recognized really early on that this was a place that they could reach consumers, they could reach younger consumers. So they started with a test and learn. They scaled it out from there, and they said, okay, let's expand our investment into gaming. What Lewis was talking about, now they've expanded out of just in-game, before game, after game, content that surrounds games, streaming. So I feel like just in-game is just getting your toe in the water for a brand to enter the space of holistic gaming universe.
I'd add to that as well that when we first started the company, it was very much endemics. We would see a lot of brands that you would associate with gaming generally, and I would safely say now that it's it's across everything, whether it's luxury brands, airlines, vehicles, anything. Like, I haven't seen a brand that isn't trying to touch gaming in some capacity, and that is a huge turn from 2018, 2019.
I think one of the things that's interesting to me, and you referenced this at the top, if you look at the gender split between male and female, it's nearly equal, right? But that's not what we all think of as the stereotypical, prototypical gamer. Now, if you missed out if you weren't marketing to women that were gaming, right? This has been there. So now you've got 45% of gaming are women. And some of the most exciting things I've seen that brands are doing in this space is not only are they tapping in, not only are they marketing to women in this space, but they're developing custom products to go along with it, custom experiences, some of the videos, some of the games we saw earlier. So I just look at it, again, mass market is something that I think we should really wrap our heads around.
Interesting. And here's a controversial question for you. People talk about the metaverse. It's been building up now for many years. There's been different iterations of it. Do you think it's arrived?
It absolutely has arrived. I'm probably the wrong person to ask that question. I'm extremely bullish on the metaverse as a concept of the evolution of the internet. And right now, we know the internet. It goes up and down. It goes left and right. That's the internet we're very used to. The metaverse doesn't, it goes in all directions, right? This is the internet in 3D. And we're connecting in this space. And effectively, we are virtualizing the experiences that we know and love right now and bringing them into the metaverse. So it's the confluence of the technologies that have matured, VR, AR, consoles, Unreal Engine that can render graphics that are indistinguishable from our own reality. Combine that, though, with the cultural shift as well. And I think this is the real impact of why the metaverse has arrived. There is a generation and there's a growing audience that says the previous version of the internet is not for me. I'm not interested in participating in the internet in that way. And I'm looking at the next generation of the internet, and we've talked about, Sam was up here talking about Web3 and blockchain and ownership over digital things. This is a growing audience that says that's the internet I want to participate in, but I don't want to call it the internet because that's just a legacy term. So if you're hearing about the metaverse and being described in, well, you don't understand what the metaverse is, that's a disconnect right now. It's the future of the internet that they want.
Great. And in terms of looking in the future, 5, 10 years, brands are heavily adopting this. And we've obviously talked about attention being the economy for understanding the effectiveness. What do you think brands are going to be looking for when they're investing their dollars into the metaverse?
Well, this isn't, it's not rocket science where we have to rethink how we find our audiences, right? We know our audience, we know who we're looking for. The challenge as marketers is it's going to be increasingly difficult to find the audience we're looking for. We're going to have to work a lot harder. So it's not explicitly going to be about investing to find your audience, investing dollars, I should say. It's going to be about investing your own first part, where you're at. Are you investing in new places to find your audience? Are you investing in new ways of connecting with your audience? Are you investing in ways to build 3D immersive experiences that establish a form of presence with your brand? Can you be standing next to the brand itself? So I think that's something that I'm really excited about, to see where brands are going to go here. And right now, I'm excited to see that we're at the very front, at the very beginning of that customer relationship, right? You're being exposed to our brand. Where I think gets interesting is once you go past just being exposed to the brand in a game, what's the experience on the other side of that? I want to dive in. I want to now shop in your retail store in the metaverse. I was exposed to it in the game. Now, is that experience going to be a website that goes up and down and left and right? Well, that seems like a disconnect right there. An immersive experience on the back end of that really can pull that experience all the way through.
Great. And to wrap up, what's one key takeaway that brands can take from today if they're considering gaming as a media channel?
Test and learn, right? You're not going to find out unless you try. So I think that one's fairly obvious. I also heard up here earlier that the metrics are changing, right? And so I think you're going to have to understand not just how we're going to measure it, but what are you actually trying to understand? Because if you can understand what you're trying to understand from your consumer, if you can understand where they go, what they want to do, what products are they buying, what's their personal style, and we can build a lot of that first-party data by building out these more immersive experiences. This is us working harder as marketers to understand our consumers, but we should be rewarded for that on the backside.
Great. Thank you. Super interesting. And that's all, guys. So thank you very much.